Hey guys, it's Dr. B. A couple quick things before I do the exam review. A couple small changes to the syllabus. One of them was one word that should not have been here and was, but it doesn't really change anything big time. I uploaded new syllabus. This word used to say online. It now says in class. Every other piece of this entire syllabus was right. There was a leftover piece from last year when the course was online. You have a physical exam physically in front of me, face to face, next week at 4:30, like we had talked about before. So it is not online. It is in front of me. That's the only thing that you will do next week. Is you will come in, you will take the test, you will hand in this lab report that you owe me, and then you'll leave. And I'll cover again chapter 8. You can do part of that. On your own, but I'll also incorporate that into obviously chapter 9 as well. So that's that. So the two changes are obviously the test is on face-to-face, and there was a weathering worksheet. There's not. There's nothing else due for the following week from that. Okay, so let's move to the exam itself. So in terms of the exam study guide, I did remove two things from the very end. There's nothing on weathering that was down here. That's a later on chapter. But everything else that we covered is here. You will see that almost all of this we covered to some degree. At least face to face. Obviously, the ed puzzles and the PowerPoints and stuff from your lab is all covered here. Things that are worth the greatest amount of points. There's a fair amount of questions on these topics right here, knowing the difference between them. There's also a fair amount of questions on these. I believe there's only one question on nebular theory, just basically to know what that would be. Moving down, there are a few questions on characteristics of rocks and minerals. We talked about them today. How rocks are different from minerals. All these collectively is probably 10 to 15% of the test. And then as far as the chemistry, you're going to be given a periodic table. Just be able to do the following things like chapter 2 had talked about. Obviously include that as well. And then moving down there, we just obviously covered the three forms of rocks and minerals and whatnot. And it won't be no surprise that you'll have some sort of rock cycle image where you're going to have to fill in the blanks as to what of the three types of rocks it is. So now let me move to actual exam questions to give you a sense of exactly what you're going to see. So one of the ways that I kind of curve the exam is by showing you 3 or 4 questions that you're going to see. I will not give you the answer. Find that out yourself. But obviously that's a way that I can ensure that you guys get these few questions right, which allows me to use that as a curve. But you'll see here that with a question like that, and feel free to pause the video, that this is basically asking you to have an understanding of, not necessarily a definition, of what these terms are referring to as far as whether a geologist, meteorologist, astronomer, and oceanographer would care about this particular observation. There are also some questions that are as declarative fundamental as this, just obviously knowing what the asthenosphere is and what part of the earth it would be. There's no reason, again, for me to cover that in the lecture because it's just basically learn it, memorize it. It's one of the few things you have to do in that sense. It doesn't require any sort of deep understanding. So this is more of a declarative. These are some of the easier questions you're going to see. You're also going to see some questions like this, which I said I would do in class today, where you're given an item and you have to tell me why it is or is not a mineral. Which kind of gives me an understanding that you understand the difference between a mineral or not. So that's a good one there. And then this question is an example of the second part of the test, the part of the test that's open-ended. So part of the test is multiple choice, about 35 of those. That accounts for 70 points of the test, and the other 30 points are questions like this, which is fairly straightforward. When would fracking be used and why is it used? So that's a pretty good view at the exam. I've probably shown you, a good close to 8 points of the exam, which will serve as a curve. So if you have any other questions for studying, feel free to contact me. Otherwise, I will see you Wednesday, March 2nd at 4:30.